So, I think it's finally time that we had a discussion about the Death Riders, because in all honesty, this faction came into AEW with so much potential, you know, kind of like the what happens if the Blackpool Combat Club go off the deep end, take out Danielson, etc., right? But now it has been, what? It's been about 4 months, roughly, since the Death Riders have been a thing, and I think now is a fair time to go over everything they've done well, everything they've done wrong, and is there any saving this faction? Because I'm going to keep it real, my opinion right now is that the Death Riders are in a really, really weird position, and I'm just going to talk about it. So I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking, well, what's the problem with the Death Riders, right? Moxley's AEW World Champion, they're the Trios champions, you know, like, what are the issues here, right? Like, what's the real problem? Well, the problem is not the fact that they're not being booked in a prominent position, it's their booking in terms of storylines and matches is the big thing. The biggest problem for me with the Death Riders is that they feel threatening, then they don't do anything for like 3 weeks, or anything like massive, they're just attacking people for 3 weeks. Then they do something big, then they stop for 3 weeks, then they do something big again, and then they stop, and it just feels very monotonous, right? It's been 4 months, and there's been no real escalation. They tried having escalation with Orange Cassidy all the way back in Full Gear in November, and that still really didn't hit the mark. Then they did the Fatal 4-Way at World's End, and that still really didn't hit the mark. In fact, it's probably, I'm gonna say it, it's probably one of the worst AEW World Title matches on an AEW pay-per-view that I've watched. So why is there a problem? Why is this a problem? Well, you brought the Death Riders in under this premise that Moxley came out, said it's not your company anymore for starters, right, which hasn't been discussed or mentioned or even circled back to really. There was this tease of there being something with the Elite involved, but we still don't know what that is yet. Obviously, again, you know, that could be a play it out a little bit, but, you know, the Bucks still haven't come back to AEW, so that's also a big issue with this story. To me, there are so many loose ends and so many avenues that the Death Riders are going down that it feels as though they don't even know what the Death Riders need to be. Is Moxley this dominant leader? Well, he should be. Yet all of his matches and all of his world title matches have had Marina Shafir interference, Claudio and Pac interference, and guess who hits the final move in most of the matches? It's not Jon Moxley, it's Wheeler Yuta. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand if you want to build a faction up, you've got to make them all seem like threats, but when Moxley is your world champion, and his finishes aren't the Death Rider, the Paradigm Shift, or the Bulldog Choke, no, it's the Busaiku Knee from Wheeler Yuta, now I think we've got a bit of a problem here. Is it that big of a deal? Yeah, not really, but it still kind of discredits the fact that Moxley is meant to be this all-conquering, destructive world champion. And when that's not being presented properly, that will be a problem. I also think a big problem is that nobody really wants Moxley to have this long run. Like, we all know he's gonna go on this long run. I mean, at this point, if he didn't drop it to Cassidy, and he didn't lose in the Fatal 4-Way, and they still haven't had Christian cash in, this thing is going a little bit longer. He's not losing it to Hobbs next week. I really doubt it, even though I want Hobbs to win, if I'm being completely honest. Right? There's so many people that want Kenny to just come in and win the belt. That's how you know we've got a bit of an issue on our hands. It's very easily remedied, and that's called you just let Moxley bull, like he hasn't bulled in a while. But how do you do that when he's already fought Jay White, he's already fought Hangman, he's already fought Cassidy, Danielson isn't there, Ospreay and Omega are now dealing with the Don Callis family. It feels like this storyline was set up at the worst time, because now there's nobody, right? Like, Darby is injured, he's taken out of the equation, and maybe he could come back before Revolution, I don't know. That's probably going to be the play. But the fact of the matter is that it feels as though the Death Riders came in with so much momentum, they took out Danielson, they then have Moxley beat Danielson for the belt in a very quick time, which, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't really a fan of, and in hindsight, I'm still not a big fan of it, to be completely honest with you. You have all of this fanfare and this big intrigue, and it never really has felt like it's paid off. right? It never feels like it's gone anywhere, and I feel like that's the big problem. It still feels like the Death Riders are in the same spot they were in when they first formed that they are now. About, 4 months into their existence as the Death Riders. And that's a big problem. In 4 months' time, there should be some sort of development, right? Maybe Moxley now has a bigger stranglehold on the company, right? Maybe the Death Riders have taken out a lot of the big names, like they have, but these big names keep coming back anyway. There's really been no massive turning point 4 months into their existence, and I think that is a big problem. We're all looking for a turning point, we're all looking for some sort of thing that shifts the momentum to make people think that the Death Riders are finally going to lose. When was the last time the Trios belts were defended? November 7th. So it's been nearly 2 months since the Trios Championships have been defended. You couldn't have had a trio go after them, right? Like, whilst that Fatal 4-Way existed, I understand that World's End, had a big card already. So that's why you ham up Collision or Rampage or anything like that. You have a trio go after Pac, Claudio, and Wheeler, right? And that now weakens the Death Riders a little bit, and it finally puts Moxley in a position of jeopardy. Because, let's be real here, for as long as the Death Riders exist, Moxley will find a way to retain. And I think that's also another thing that I'm just personally not a fan of. I don't like Moxley being this cowardly heel that has to rely on Marina Shafir, Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta to actually get the win. I don't really like that, so naturally I'm going to be a little bit against this storyline. But maybe there's a turning point, right? Maybe there is a way around this. Maybe they're going to turn things around with this whole rated FTR versus the Death Riders, right? With Darby coming back maybe at some point. Maybe things are going to turn around in the new year, right? Maybe Powerhouse Hobbs beats Moxley at Maximum Carnage, and the Death Rider storyline just kind of fades into obscurity and we never talk about it again. Who knows, right? I've given it time, and I said I would give it time, because I didn't want to do what I did with the Undisputed Kingdom of as soon as they come out and they've done stuff like a month. I went, this could be the greatest faction AEW's ever had, but there's some problems. I've given the Death Riders 4 months, pretty much, right, to do their thing and to showcase to the world what their kind of whole deal is about, right, and how they're going to be booked and how they're going to be presented. And I really do think that either the Death Riders, Moxley, or Tony Khan, or whoever's in charge of creative, have really missed the mark on the first 4 months of the Death Riders. There have been some good moments, don't get me wrong. Every cloud has its silver lining at the end of the day. But when it's consistently just sort of, oh, okay. And the fact that, like, so many people have said that, in a way, the Death Riders are channel changers to them. That's a problem when they're your top act and they're your top heel faction. So let me know what you guys think, right? Because I think I'm going nuts at times, being like, I saw the potential, but there's just nothing going on right now with the Death Riders, and that's like a massive problem. But let me know what you guys think, and if you want more wrestling think pieces, you can go ahead and check them out here. And apparently YouTube thinks you'll really like this video, so it might be worth checking that out. See ya!